Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Edward James. I'm the head of content and research at MEED, and welcome to the latest webinar in our series this year. This week, we'll be looking at the MENA construction and infrastructure projects market. That is looking at the civil construction space in the Middle East, GCC, and North Africa. As usual, this presentation is being recorded. So you'll have a chance to watch it in your own time later on. It will also be uploaded to YouTube over the next few days, so you'll be able to share it with your colleagues and friends if required. And as usual as well, this presentation will be distributed to all of you by email and PDF format during the course of this presentation. In about half an hour's time from that time on, you should be receiving an email with this presentation again, so you can look at it in your own time, and as long as you've registered for this event, and you'll be able to share that with your colleagues as well. At the end of this presentation, I'll, as usual, be taking some questions from you. If you do have any questions, please put them into the Q&A box in your Zoom menu bar. You'll be able to ask me questions about the market, and I'll do my best to answer them. So without further ado, let's move on to our analysis. Now, just for those of you who are wondering where we get all the data from in this presentation, it's quite a data-heavy deck today. The majority of this data is coming from MEED.com, our news, features and analysis service, as well as MEED Projects, the projects tracking service covering all of the MENA region and sub-Saharan Africa. And by tracking projects in the regions, we are able to quantify different trends, historical, current, and future, make project forecasts, project share, market shares, and looking at some of the opportunities and challenges. So if you're interested in news, features, analysis, and projects tracking, whether it's for analytical or business development purposes, then please visit MEED.com or MEEDprojects.com to find out more information. Also, just a reminder for everyone that next month, I can't believe it's only a month away now, on the 13th and 14th of May in Riyadh, we have the second edition of our Saudi Giga Projects 2024 event summit. And then the next day, the MENA Construction Summit 2024. As you can see already, in terms of the sponsors, it's already a very popular event. It was a fantastic event last year, which I chaired, and I'm really looking forward again to chairing and attending the event this year. As we all know, Saudi Arabia is the most talked about market at the moment, and we'll be focusing a lot on the Giga Projects program. We'll be hearing from senior executives from a number of the PIF's Giga Projects subsidiaries, including New Murabba Development Company and the Cube, Diriyah Company, of course, developing the Diriyah UNESCO World Heritage Site, Asfar, with another PIF subsidiary, King Salman Park Foundation, not a PIF subsidiary, but developing the world's largest urban park in Riyadh, Red Sea Global, of course, developing the Amala and Red Sea projects on the Red Sea coast, Roshan, the housing developer, and also Sports Boulevard Foundation developing Sports Boulevard in Riyadh. And we also have Riyadh Region Municipality attending and speaking at the event. And as you'll see here from this slide, Riyadh Region Municipality is our diamond sponsor for the event. And you'll also see that New Murabba is our platinum partner as well. So it's going to be a fantastic event, lots of Giga Project clients speaking. It's a fantastic networking opportunity, as well as to hear about the latest developments, tenders, contracts, procurement schedules for this. So if you're interested in attending our summit in the 13th and 14th of May in Riyadh, then you have a QR code here to find out more should you wish to buy a ticket or delegate pass to attend. And then finally, before I start the presentation, just to let you know that this presentation is being done in association with our latest premium intelligence report called the MENA Construction Infrastructure Projects Market 2024 report. It contains all the data you can see here today, but a lot more and more detail on a country by country basis. there is a special pre-launch offer for all of you attending today of $3,500, and you can also apply a special discount to that using the webinar 100 code, as you see there. And if you want to know more, see the table of contents, etc., then there's another QR code for you that will lead you to the website page for that particular report. Okay, so again, just to remind everyone that this presentation is being recorded, and also to please submit your questions in the Q&A menu bar on Zoom, which I will, once this presentation is over in about 20 minutes, half an hour, I will attempt to answer some of your questions about the market. Okay, so how did the market perform last year? Well, some of you already may have attended these webinars or my presentations before, and you'll know that last year was a record year for the projects market in the region. As you'll see here, in the MENA region, $255 billion worth of contracts across all sectors were awarded last year. That's far higher than any other year in history in the region, and certainly is welcome news, as you'll see, for after a decade or so of much declining market as the oil prices fell and as government spending was reined in. And in particular, it was the GCC that had a fantastic year, $209 billion worth of contracts awarded, again, after a long period of declining project spend. So again, very welcome news. And we are currently, as we're going into 2024, looking to see whether we can maintain those numbers across the year ahead. So fantastic year, smashed all records. The UAE and Saudi Arabia in particular had record years, and it's a very, very good time indeed to be a projects company in the region right now. However, when we're looking at these numbers, we also need to note the fact that if you look at the MENA number and you look at the GCC number, you will be able to infer that outside the GCC, projects market spending actually declined a little last year, mainly as a result of the decline in the Egyptian construction market. As we know, Egypt's had a few macroeconomic issues recently, and that's translated into lower project spending. Right, now let's take that same data and look at it in particular at the construction and infrastructure contracts or projects market. And when we're talking about construction and infrastructure, we're talking about villas, towers, hotels, malls, theme parks, schools, hospitals, and so on. And infrastructure, we're looking at things like railways, airports, ports, roads, tunnels, and so forth. And we can see here, as I mentioned just now, the Saudi Arabia and the UAE had record spending levels last year in projects. Both of them smashed their previous highs. Saudi Arabia around $95 billion of contracts awarded, and the UAE about a little over $80 billion. This is for all sectors. But you can see other markets not quite so good. We've seen Qatar come down from highs before the World Cup. Egypt, as I mentioned, has fallen quite a bit from the 2022 number. And it's really only the UAE and Saudi Arabia that's been driving that projects market over the last year. And you can see that's the same for infrastructure and construction in particular. You can see that Qatar number well down prior to the World Cup, and there was a rush of spending for the stadiums there. You can see spending has almost ground to a halt in construction and infrastructure there. Likewise in Egypt, as for the aforementioned reasons. But it's really being driven by the Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Saudi Arabia, of course, by the Giga Projects program, and the UAE by a revival in the real estate sector in Dubai in particular. Now, just to give you a little bit more sort of granular detail about some of the contracts and data you saw there, these are a list of some of the big contracts awarded last year, not all of them, of course, but just a highlight of some of them. And you can see big contracts across multiple different MENA countries, the largest of which was the gaming resort in Ras Al Khaimah for Wynn Resorts. We also had big contracts awarded on King Salman Park. The Qiddiya project, PIF subsidiary Giga project, Riyadh Sports Boulevard also awarded a big contract. And then outside of those Giga projects, Mawani in Saudi Arabia, the upgrade of King Abdulaziz Port. We also have the some big contracts in Iraq under the National Investment Commission, and also Nineveh Investment Commission. There's a number of large new housing developments, new cities as they're described and called in Iraq, that we saw last year and which we'll see this year as well. Elsewhere, railways, very popular. We see the Alexandria Metro project was finally awarded after many years of planning. We also saw the Connect South for NEOM railway tunnel, and a host of other major projects across the region, across different segments. Now, let's take a look at the largest contractors and clients in the construction and infrastructure space. Probably not a surprise, some of these names to a lot of you. The leading construction infrastructure contractor at the moment in terms of projects under execution is China State. We have seen a lot of Chinese contractors come into the region over the last 3-4 years, and they are being very successful across all sectors, including oil and gas and power. But in the construction and infrastructure space, China State is leading the way. It's one of the world's largest contractors, and has won a lot of work, and it's very geographically spread across different countries in the region. Orascom, the Egyptian contractor, also very strong across different markets. It's in second place there with about $9 billion of contracts under execution. Then the Saudi firm, Nesman Partners, it's one of the new contracting champions in Saudi Arabia after receiving foreign investment from the PIF. Arab contractors out of Egypt, another big company active across the region. Limak out of Turkey, Trojan from the UAE, Saudi bin Laden, modern building leaders, China Harbour, and so on. Some quite familiar names, I'm sure, for many of you. Again, likewise for the top clients in the construction and infrastructure sectors, no surprises here. NEOM, probably the world's largest project, is leading the way in terms of active projects. Of course, it's got the line, it's got the spine infrastructure, it's got Gulf of Aqaba projects in Dala Island, and the Oxagon, and a host of other major projects. So it's the leading client at the moment, and is likely to be for some years to come. We then have National Authority for Tunnels in Egypt, which is the client on the high-speed railway in the country, as well as the Cairo Metro and the Alexandria Metro projects. Next up, we have private developer, that is individuals who have their own projects. So when you aggregate the number of projects or the value of projects being carried out or owned by private individuals, you can see that they constitute the third largest set of clients in the region. Then we have National Housing Company out of Saudi Arabia, building affordable housing in the kingdom. Diriyah, as I mentioned, developing the Diriyah development west of Riyadh. Roshan, the housing developer in Saudi Arabia, part of PIF. And then the Ministry of Public Works in Kuwait, and so on. I'm sure all very familiar names for you. Anas Rif, out of Algeria, which is the national railway company there, has some very big railway plans, and so on. Just a quick note on the Giga Projects program. The presentation today isn't on the Giga Projects themselves, but I couldn't do a construction and infrastructure webinar or presentation without mentioning the Giga Projects at least a little. And this is the value of contracts awarded in Saudi Arabia across all sectors in the last 7 or 8 years. And you can see the very steep rise in construction spending, mainly as a result of investments in the Giga Projects program. You can see topping $25 billion last year. And likewise in the transport infrastructure segment, reaching more than $15 billion last year. Again, a big rise over the 10-year average. And both of those as a direct result of Giga Project spending. And just as a reminder, what those companies are, we've got 5 official Giga Projects in Saudi Arabia: NEOM, Red Sea Global, Diriyah, Roshan, and Qiddiya. We have a host of other PIF subsidiaries like New Maraba, Suda Development, Ruwa Medina, Devon, and so on. And probably more to come over the next year or so. And then we have various non-PIF Giga Projects like Sports Boulevard, Green Riyadh, King Salman Park, the Royal Commission for Riyadh City, and Al Ula. And then, of course, not forgetting other segments and other major mega project programs in the tens of billions of dollars. We have National Housing Company, Ramco, of course, Saudi Arabian Railways, Jeddah Airports Company, Ministry of Sports Stadiums Program, and so on. So when people are talking about Saudi Arabia at the moment, this is the reason why. As is this. This is just a quick summary and map of some of the giga projects in Saudi Arabia, the active ones. And you'll see here that approximately $85 to $88 billion worth of contracts have been awarded so far on the giga projects program. And the total program we estimated about $880 billion. So we're approximately 10% of the way through the giga projects program. So many, many more years and many hundreds of billions of dollars investment still to come. Okay, so I've got one quick poll question for you all today on financing, and a question will pop up now if you kindly answer that if you can, and then we'll see the result. So the questions are: how easy is it currently for your company to obtain finance in the region? It hasn't changed. It's still difficult. It hasn't changed. It's still relatively easy. It's become harder. It's become easier. Just give you a few seconds, everyone, to answer that question if you are able to. Not obligatory, but if you can, it'd be great just to see what the situation is like. Okay, so we've had just under 150 responses. It's pretty even, actually. 30% report it's still difficult to obtain finance on projects, and just under 30% say it's still relatively easy. A quarter say it's got harder to obtain finance, and 15% or so have said it's become easier to get finance. So quite a mixed, different set of answers there and opinions. Right. So that's that for now. Thank you very much for your participation in that poll. Right. Let's carry on. Okay, so as you know, normally my presentations are quite data intensive, looking at projects, contract awards, but this week on this presentation, I wanted to look at the projects market in a slightly different way. And this is taking a look at the projects market momentum index, looking at what impetus the market has and whether it's accelerating or declining. And then also looking at the construction risk index, looking at some of the risks and potentials for each market. So CPMI stands for the Construction Project Momentum Index. This is a proprietary data set from MEED and our parent company, Global Data. And here it's applied to different markets globally, just to understand how they compare with each other in terms of projects market developments. Now, on the top left, you can see the momentum index for construction over the last 4 years or so. And naturally, you'd have seen in 2020, there was a decline in momentum as a result of COVID. And ever since then, there's been an increase across the world in construction project market activity. Below that, you can see how that breaks down by region, part of the world, and you'll see that some regions do better than others. You'll notice on the right-hand side that the Middle East and North Africa is actually the highest ranked region at the moment in terms of project momentums, according to our metrics and index, which is a very positive development and is performing a lot better than some other markets. Top right-hand on the map there, you can see how the momentum index is performing on a sort of geographical basis, on a country-by-country basis. The darker the color, the darker the blue color, the better the market. The redder or more orange the market, the slower it is performing. And you can see here, Iran, Algeria, the GCC as a whole are performing very well. And you can see that again in a different way in the MENA markets here below. You can see again how well the markets are performing. And on the right-hand side, I won't go through that. You can look at it in your own time, but that's the methodology that we use to for that index. Now let's just take a look at, for example, the Saudi Arabia trend. You can see here that we are on the way up in the GCC and Saudi Arabia areas. You can see here that the momentum index for execution and for pre-execution projects and the overall trend is trending upwards, performing very well, showing the acceleration in the market. And also you can see on a per sector basis over the last year, you can see that also the residential and commercial and leisure market, in other words, the construction markets, are also performing on the way, doing very well in terms of momentum, which you would expect. So overall, Middle East and the MENA region in general performing very well compared with the rest of the world in terms of momentum. Now, another way we can look at the projects market or the construction infrastructure sector is the value add of construction to the local economy. So this is basically the output of construction each year, and you can see here the construction output in the emerging markets. The lighter blue line is far higher than growth is far higher than the growth in the advanced economies. Again, you might expect this coming from a lower base, much higher economic growth, but the construction output, which incorporates things like labor, materials, and services in the construction market, on the up. And again, you can see how some of these diverge. In Saudi Arabia, we've got construction output growth very strong, and in the last couple of years, we've seen it as high as 14%, and ranging between 3 and 14%. So a very positive picture, and you can see the construction value output has grown from about 35 billion rials to nearly 45 billion over the last 4 years. On the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, Qatar market has been in decline, and you can see that in some years, actually, or in some quarters, we've actually seen a drop in the value add of construction in Qatar in recent times. Now, I also want to touch briefly on our construction risk analysis. So all countries and regions globally, we rate them in terms of the construction risk or project market risk, take into account 4 different dimensions. That is market risk, in other words, project market risk, financial risk, economic risk, and political risk. And by aggregating those, we get different rating scores and definitions for each market and economy and region. And the lower the score, the lower the risk level. The best rating is A1, and followed by A2, B1, and so on. And then when we apply that to the MENA region, here you get the different risk indices scores for each market. And you can see that the UAE and Saudi Arabia rank the best in terms of level of risk. Both of them are B1 alongside Qatar, which is a low to moderate risk. On the other hand, you go up to Egypt, Bahrain, Algeria, where there is a much higher risk rated D1. Then you can see in the Middle East on the top and the right-hand most bar chart, you can see the Middle East ranks roughly in the middle of the global regional risk scores. Again, that hides a bit of divergence there. Of course, you've got some parts of the Middle East and North Africa, particularly the GCC, which are much lower risk. And then you've got those outside the GCC, which tend to be a bit higher risk. But if we looked at the GCC alone, then chances are it would rank alongside Western Europe and Northeast Asia for construction risk. And again, if you wanted to see that broken down a little bit more in terms of the construction risk for different countries, here you'll see the individual markets. The lower the number, the lower the risk. The higher the number, the higher the risk. And you can see how it's broken down into those different risk dimensions: political, financial, economic, and market risk. Again, the lower the score, the better. Okay, so that's looking at those 3 proprietary data sets: our construction risk index, our construction project momentum index, and our Construction Value Added Trends Index. And all of these can be found on the Construction and MENA Infrastructure Premium Intelligence Report, which I talked about earlier. Also, just as a reminder, this presentation is being recorded, so you can look at it in your own time once we've uploaded it online in a few days' time. And you should also be receiving, over the next 20, 30 minutes or so, a copy of the presentation itself, should you wish to look at it in more detail, or indeed share it with colleagues. And also, just as a reminder, as usual, I'll be taking questions from you. If you do have any, at the end of this presentation, I'll be doing my best to answer them. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box that you can see on your Zoom menu. Okay, so what's the outlook for 2024 for the construction and infrastructure sectors? So as we do normally, we look at the value of contracts in tender or bid evaluation, and you can see that the UAE just has the edge on Saudi Arabia in terms of contracts under bid evaluation and tender. These tend to be the contracts which are closest to being awarded, and therefore are a very good short-term indicator of the value of contracts to be awarded this year. We then have Iraq at 6 billion, Oman 5.6, Kuwait 4.7, and Qatar at 4 billion, and then 10.7 billion across other markets like Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Algeria, and so on. So we've got a very healthy, more than $140 billion of contracts in the short term under bid, evaluation, or tender. And we can split those up, and I apologize, some of the legend seems to be missing there, but mixed use is the single largest segment of the short-term contract list, followed by residential, and then commercial. And then we have terminal projects, airports, and so forth, 6.3 billion, hospitality, hotels, 6.1 billion, and then other segments like education and so on at $13.7 billion. Let's look at some of these contracts out to bid right now, which would likely be awarded this year. Well, top of the list, we've got the Dubai Metro Blue Line. Bids are due to be submitted next month, I believe, and then we'll have a good idea who's going to win that. We've got King Saud Air Base defense project in Saudi Arabia. Jeddah Tower, bids are going to be submitted imminently for that. That will be the world's tallest tower. In Jeddah, of course, we've got the infrastructure signaling and rolling stock contract for NEOM, the line, the PPP project to upgrade Abha International Airport. We've got Riyadh Metro and a host of other projects. We've got Big Libya cross-country motorway, funded by the Italian government. We've got Oxagon port contracts at NEOM, railway lines in Algeria, and a host of other major projects across different markets in the region. So some very big, some very exciting, diverse contracts in the short term across the region. Longer term, so when we look at just the construction infrastructure market, there's approximately $2.85 trillion of known, planned, and unawarded projects in the region. Saudi Arabia is by far and away the largest single market, about $1.28 trillion, followed by the UAE, $557 billion, then Egypt, $325 billion, and then you can see Iraq, $151, Qatar, $124, Oman, $109, and Kuwait, $105 billion. And then the others, including countries like Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, and Jordan, Lebanon, and so on, about $196 billion. On the right-hand side, you can see how that's broken down by segment. In the construction infrastructure space, we've got $1.26 trillion of mixed-use projects. That includes projects like NEOM, where it's not possible to yet define the specific segmentation of those markets. So that will spread out over time into different segments. Infrastructure, such as railways, ports, airports, and so on, roads, about $502 billion. Residential, $450 billion. Terminals, $220 billion. Hotels, $100 billion, and so on. So very healthy long-term pipeline indeed. The construction sector particularly tends to be the largest single sector in the region and is going to continue to be so based on this data for many years to come. So very healthy pipeline indeed. And then in terms of some of those longer term projects, you can see them here, some very big projects indeed, such as the Al Maktoum International Airport here in Dubai. We've got Ras Al Hikmah City, which many of you I'm sure will have read about in Egypt, a lot of foreign investment coming into that. Blue City in Oman, some big newly announced EMAR projects, the Heights Country Club and Grand Club Resort. We've got a lot of airport projects, actually, you can see Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait as well. A lot of railway projects, high-speed railway in UAE, for example, but also in Riyadh. We've got Riyadh Expo 2030 coming up in Riyadh before 2030. And as you can see, we've got a range of other big projects coming. Key challenges, before I end, we've got some of the big usual challenges in the region. Delayed payments, cash flow challenges, financing issues. We saw earlier from the poll that some companies do suffer from obtaining finance, and that can always be a challenge for contractors, especially to get cash flow running as they are delayed, as they get their payments delayed from clients. Another issue is how to deliver projects as the market is growing, as we've seen recently, particularly in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. How is the market going to cope with the increasing demand for labor, contracting capacity, materials, labor accommodation, equipment, and so on? These are still fairly unanswered questions. We also are suffering at the moment from a lack of top international contractors. We know quite a few have left the region over the years, and it remains to be seen if they come back to help deliver this big projects program. Yes, we're seeing a lot of contractors coming in from Turkey, from India, from China, but are we going to see some of the bigger traditional firms from Europe coming back, for example? We've got cost inflation, of course, with the Red Sea situation. We also have big logistical problems. We've got geopolitical issues in the region. What impact will they have on construction here? And also, how is the construction market going to adapt and embrace ESG and sustainability on projects? We're seeing a greater push for the use of green materials for less carbon intensive projects. How is the construction market adapting to that? Can it use technology such as 3D, 4D, 5D BIM, for example, to develop projects? What about Internet of Things, digital twins? How can they help deliver projects more sustainably? And what can construction companies do to adopt them? And how can clients also use them more effectively on their projects to reduce their carbon intensity? So these are all challenges, or rather questions, that the market should be asking itself, or is being asked, as the projects market grows in the region. So just looking at a few specific projects in the construction infrastructure space coming up, some of the biggest ones and some of the most interesting ones. First up, we've got two metro lines in Riyadh. We've got the extension of Line 2 into Diriyah, and we also have Metro Line 7 from Qiddiya to King Salman Airport, passing through Diriyah, New Murabba, and the Tower X development, North Pole, in Riyadh, and two very major projects and out in the market right now. So we may see those being awarded this year. Both of those are under the Royal Commission for Riyadh City, of course, and you get some details about what they involve. Lots of underground work, lots of station work, several $1 billion worth of projects there. Likewise, I talked about this earlier, another pressing project which must be completed by 2030 is Riyadh Expo, the World Expo. This is the location in the far north of Riyadh, and a lot of work there clearly will be required to develop the necessary infrastructure like metro stations, the roads, the drainage, electricity infrastructure, but also, of course, the pavilions themselves, buildings. And that is, if anyone can remember the Dubai Expo experience, this is a lot of investment, and in only less than 6 years to deliver. So another very interesting project. as is the Maktoum International Airport expansion. That's going to be done over 3 phases. Strategic plan phase 1, strategic plan phase 2, and then the ultimate phase. Just phase 1 alone is going to require the construction of Concourse 1, which is going to be as large as the 3 existing concourses in Dubai International Airport currently. Massive project. You need automatic paper mover, you need extension of the Route 2020 metro, baggage handling systems, utilities, buildings, new runways, and so on. And that's just the first phase. Second phase, another concourse, and then the ultimate phase, concourses 3 and 4. An absolutely enormous project. And of course, we'll also need 2 terminals, West Terminal, East Terminal, and we expect that to start going to the market this year at some point. So huge project. Another one I talked about earlier is the Dubai Blue Line. Bids are being submitted next month for this. We've got 6 or so consortium lining up to submit bids for that. Again, underground, overground, some iconic stations, very, very major project, more than 30 kilometers, and running from the Rashidia and Jaddaf terminuses currently all the way through to Academic City. So we'll know more about that in a month or so time. And another railway project. Railway projects at the moment, very, very popular. A lot of railway projects, and this one is probably the biggest of all. This is the high-speed railway between Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Al Ain. This is not to be confused with the second phase of the Etihad Railway. This is a dedicated high-speed railway between the 3 cities, and is going to require an awful lot of tunneling, an awful lot of expense to build, and is being fast-tracked. In fact, they've already started soil testing in some areas, and there was an EOI recently issued for the early works. So that is moving ahead as well under Etihad Rail. Several $1 billion definitely required for that. Okay, so I'll now take some questions. If you please submit them in the Q&A box, I'll do my best to answer them. I see already we've got a few. But before doing so, just again, reminder about our Giga Projects 2024 event and the MENA Construction Summit 2024 event on the 13th and 14th of May in Riyadh. I'll be there. I hope I can see you all there. We're going to hear directly from Giga Project owners, senior executives from those development companies who will be talking about their project-specific procurement plans, demand signaling, contract opportunities, procurement pipelines, and so on. And we already had a very successful first edition of the Giga Projects event last year. Hundreds of delegates and sponsors. It was a fantastic chance to network and meet directly with the Giga Project clients. So if you're interested in attending, please, you have a QR code there. Please scan through to that to get more information. And again, I just want to point out and thank our diamond partners, Riyadh Region Municipality, and our platinum partner, New Maraba Development Company, one of the Giga Projects, for partnering with us on this event. So very significant. It's the event to be at if you're interested at all in construction in Saudi Arabia. And then finally, just one more plug. This one is for our Premium Intelligence Report, the MENA Construction Infrastructure Projects Market Report. If you like and are interested in the data you have seen today, and you want to have much more granular detail on a country-by-country level, then please check out our this report. You get a free launch offer discount. You also get a code which you can get a further discount on. If you want to get more information, then please just scan through to the QR code there for more information. Okay, final poll question. As I mentioned, all of the data here today comes from MEED.com and MEED Projects, but we have also our premium reports and our events and marketing solutions services. If you are interested in any of them, we have our poll question. If you would like to know more how we can help your business, you've got 5 options there. If you're interested in any of them, please select, and we'll be more than happy to contact you to explore further how we can support you and your business plans and growth. So I'll just give everyone an opportunity to answer that question, and then I'll take your questions. We have the Q&A box there on the menu bar. If you do have any questions, please submit that, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay. Well, thank you all very much for answering that question. I will now start to answer the Q&A. Just opening up and going to start looking at the questions to answer. Okay, so my organization is in the paints coatings industry, looking at particularly at corrosion protection, offshore assets, oil and gas plants, and so on. How do we develop a target project list for the above type projects, and how can MEED help us with this? So I think the most applicable product we have here is our MEED projects database. This is a list of all current, historical, and future projects in the Middle East and Africa. This is on the top right-hand corner here. There are maybe 10,000 plus active projects in the GCC region alone. If you are interested to know more about them, then please visit that subscription service, and you can get a demo, and you can find out more about the pipeline of projects in the region which you can target. We provide details like the client, the location, the scope, the contacts for the various main contractors and consultants and so on. It's an excellent way to grow your business, as are all our other products. Question here, why do you think there are no giga projects on the eastern side of Saudi Arabia? So let me just go back to the map I showed you earlier. It's a very good question indeed. So here we are. So you'll notice here that when you look at the geographical perspective of the Giga Projects program, or the major spending programs in Saudi Arabia, you can see that they are focused on Riyadh, Jeddah, Mecca, and along the Red Sea coast, and not very much at all on the Gulf Coast. And that is, so it's a good question to ask, why are there not any along here? And the answer is because they haven't been launched yet. But there are certainly a number of big giga projects under the PIF coming up along the Gulf Coast. There is a big project in Khafji on the divided zone, big mixed-use project, tourism, residential, commercial development in Khafji coming up. And then we're also going to see two touristic-focused developments in Al-Uqair and Al-Khair, and Al-Uqair, I think, coming up by dedicated PIF subsidiaries. And we also have the RIG project, which is being developed and by another PIF subsidiary offshore as well. So that will change. There will be giga projects along the Arabian Gulf, and there'll also be another big project in Sheba near the UAE border, which is around here. If you can see the cursor, that is coming up as well. So that will change. Then there will be more projects along the Gulf Coast. What is the market like for large-scale dredging in the MENA region, and who are the players, please? Well, there's a lot of dredging projects currently and historically. If you look along the Red Sea coast, you have clearly a lot of dredging projects around the islands, which are part of the NEOM and Red Sea project developments. A lot of dredging work in and around those islands. They're not displayed here, but if you look more carefully at something like, for example, the Red Sea project, there are more than 24 islands which are going to be developed and which will need some sort of marine works done on them, as will islands like Sindala, Shusha, and some others in the NEOM development, as well as Amala. And on the Gulf Coast, well, you have a lot in the UAE, such as Palm Jebel Ali, Deira Islands, the World, and so on, which will require a lot of dredging works going forward. On the oil and gas side, for example, in the LNG program in Qatar, we need marine works. And going to Egypt as well, a lot of projects, maritime projects, desalination projects in Algeria, for example, all require a lot of marine works infrastructure. So a lot of markets for dredging in the region. In terms of the major players, well, we've got Huta Marine, very strong in Saudi Arabia. We've got the big Belgian and Dutch dredging companies like Jan de Nul, Boskalis, to name but a couple. Then you've got some local players like NMDC, Gulf Dredging, and so on, which are very active in the region. So those are the major players historically. How have recent events in the Red Sea impacted risk that you're showing? Well, very good question. As we know, there have been some of the drone attacks on the Red Sea coast, which has resulted in a drop in shipping numbers through the Red Sea and onto the Suez Canal. This has created big logistical issues for certain projects, like at NEOM and Red Sea project, as it's obviously going to take longer for some of the materials to be delivered, but also along in Jeddah port and Jazan and so on. And then, of course, along the Egyptian coast as well is going to be causing issues. But for the whole logistics supply chain, generally, it's going to push up prices and delays. And in the case of somewhere like Egypt, it's also created a lot of macroeconomic risk from lower Suez Canal revenues and foreign investment in general. And those are reflected in our latest construction risk index as well, particularly on the macroeconomic and projects market risk indices. So data I showed you earlier was Q3, but the Q4 and 2023 and the Q1 2024 data will certainly have that taken into account. Any news on the Delta Junction announcement, which was planned, or award, which was planned in March 2024? You're talking about the Delta Junction at NEOM, which is a huge interchange depot project linking the Connector South, Connector North, and the Line Railway project. I don't believe it's been awarded yet, but I do believe a lot of big international consortia are bidding for that. The likes of the Chinese, WeBuild out of Italy, and so on. But I haven't got the data yet on the award, but it should be happening. It should be happening imminently. What's your outlook for 2025, 2026? Just my opinion. My opinion is that we're going to see very strong continual growth in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. As you can see, we're only 10% of the way through the Giga Projects program. So a lot more work to come, even if some of the projects might be rescaled or rephased to take into account, construction conditions in the region. It's a lot of very ambitious projects, and I believe some of them will inevitably have to be rephased beyond 2030. But still, the amount of work planned, even regardless, is still huge, and we're going to see, especially based on the first few months of 2024, we're going to see a continuance of the very high spending levels. Of course, much depends on the oil price, as ever. But as long as the oil price remains above its $70, $80 barrel range, then we should see a maintaining of spending levels. Hopefully, we'll see a recovery in the Egyptian macroeconomic situation that will result in a bit more spending in the construction sector there. And I'm hopeful that we can see Qatar market also rebound and work towards its 2030 vision in terms of construction and infrastructure. And then if you look at countries like Morocco, we've got a new high-speed railway between Casablanca and Marrakesh, which is a huge project, very active as well. We never know. We may well see the Libya market recover as well over the long term. That could provide some good prospects. And finally, Oman, as you saw earlier from the Blue City project, there's some big foreign investment, real estate and tourism projects coming up in and around Muscat, which very significant and which will push the market up there too. What changes do you think need to be made to attract top-tier contractors back to the region? Well, I think we need reduced contractual risk. We need a bit more certainty around payments and opportunities. We need, I think, some export credit agency support financing for these projects. And I think we need to see a bit more earlier contractor involvement in some of these projects to reduce some of that construction risk as well. So if there is a potential for direct negotiation for contracts, if they are guaranteed and supported by the home countries, for example, like SACE out of Italy or Export Credit Agency out of the UK, UK Export Credit Finance, or COFAS out of France, for example, then we could well see some or more of these big contractors returning. But again, it all depends on the geopolitical, the reputational risk, and some of the contractual risk for some of these companies. But certainly, there's no doubt that there needs to be more international contractors coming in. We have seen the Koreans return quite strongly, and we've seen the Japanese also come in. A lot of Chinese companies now dominating the market too. But is it enough to be able to deliver on all the plans? We'll have to wait and see. What do you rate the chances of Larsen and Toubro in MENA projects? Well, if I took, you may have seen some previous webinars, if I took all sectors into account, Larsen and Toubro is currently the largest single contractor in the MENA region due to its ability to deliver projects, not just in oil and gas and construction and infrastructure, but also in power and water projects, particularly in renewable energy. And Larsen and Toubro has done extremely well recently, and which you'll have seen from its share price, won some very significant projects in Saudi Arabia, for example, and is currently the largest single contractor in the region. So the chances are very good for Larsen & Toubro. The question is whether it wants to maintain that level of growth and continue growing. What data is there on the rise of ESG and the specification for sustainable and low carbon material selection from developers on projects? So most of the Giga project clients now do have requirements for sustainability and ESG, and there is an ESG code applied to them. So companies do need to adhere to that and have their own ESG codes and credentials. And indeed, if you look at most of these Giga project clients, they're all aiming to be carbon neutral with renewable energy as their prime energy source, and also for things like desalination and district cooling and so on. So that in terms of their overall delivery and final sort of, completion, they are going to be built as sustainably as possible with, and afterwards be sustainable buildings, green buildings with high LEED rated ratings and certifications on all of them. But if you look more at the public sector, then we are starting to see more focus on this aspect. But we have to be pragmatic about this. There isn't enough green steel, green cement capacity in the region to be able to deliver all projects sustainably. But we are certainly moving in that direction. And once we start adding carbon capture to heavy industry like aluminium, steel, and cement plants, then we'll be making that big step forward. But certainly for the key iconic projects, then sustainability is at the heart of all of them. And certainly for the Giga project clients, then most materials and projects will have to have that sustainability element. Can we have a list of the details of consultants and contractors? Well, that's a very big list, thousands of companies long. And again, I would recommend that you subscribe to MEED Projects, the projects database. You'll be able to download every single contractor and consultant working on every historical and active project in the region. How can MEED be useful when it comes to service providing, to be it contracting, manpower, supply, service provider, or any other service after the bidding stage or after the contract has been awarded? Well, again, we have a list of all projects in the MENA region above $10 million across all sectors. So if you're a manpower supplier, for example, or material supplier, or equipment provider, you will see which projects are in bidding, which projects are planned, which projects are under execution or construction. We're alongside the consultant and the main contractor, as well as some of the subcontractors, with contact details, and you'll be able to contact them directly to pitch your product or service. And again, I recommend everyone to visit meedprojects.com for more information on our projects database. Well worth subscribing to. And of course, check out for context for the project developments and features analysis, meed.com, our sort of sister features and analysis website as well. Do you expect any delay for projects to be executed in 2024 in Saudi Arabia? Yes and no. Certainly in the first 3 months, we've seen a lot of big projects being awarded. For example, the $4 billion plus contract to build the major dam, the vault at Trojena, part of NEOM, as part of the sort of high mountain sort of ski resort development in time for the Asian Winter Games in 2029. We've also got the sports infrastructure in Riyadh 2030 World Expo, which have to be built in advance of that event, but also the World Cup in 2034 in Riyadh. So we won't see much delay in those event-driven projects. And we're still seeing a lot of tendering from the Giga projects themselves, as well as a lot of spending from Aramco and power and water projects too in the kingdom. So yes, there will be some rephasing and rescheduling of projects, but you're talking about such a huge pipeline in any case that there's still a huge number of projects which are going to stay on schedule and be awarded this year. But certainly, if people were thinking about 200-300 billion dollars of contracts a year in Saudi Arabia to meet these 2030 vision targets, that won't be the case, and that's never been the case, simply because the market doesn't have the capacity or capability to deliver that. And that was, not very, being pragmatic. Those were never particularly realistic assumptions. Can we get specific building material demand for different sectors? Well, I haven't mentioned it here, but MEED Global Data does have its bespoke consultancy division. So if you're looking for market size and sizing, demand and supply for specific materials, equipment, or indeed any service, then you can contact me directly in this email below or WhatsApp me, and we can send you more details about the consultancy solution, which of course is bespoke for companies. So if you're looking for any market studies, that's certainly something we can do. We've got the data to support that. Do you know if any ultra high performance concrete has been specified on any of the projects? I'm afraid I don't have an answer for that question, but you can get in touch with me and we can try and find out more for that. Are there regional reports on Saudi Arabia available? We don't have any premium reports on specific regions in Saudi Arabia, but again, using our MEED projects database, you certainly can segment the data by not just by sector, but also by subsector and region and city, even if you wish. So then you can quantify spend in different regions. And indeed, if you go onto YouTube and you search for MEED Saudi Arabia projects webinar, or even our last webinar, which was on the Saudi Arabia projects ecosystem, you will indeed see project construction split by different parts of the kingdom. We are providing services for civil infrastructure work. Please advise how to connect to major EPCs to work on these giga projects. Well, you need to be pre-qualified with the EPCs. You need to be on their vendor list to receive the RFP for subcontractors for them. And indeed, you need to register with each of the giga projects themselves, which is fairly straightforward. Simply go to their websites. Each one needs to be pre-qualified separately. Go to their vendor registration page, and it's a fairly straightforward process to register your company. For the EPCs, you need to approach them and build that relationship with them and be pre-qualified. Again, something like MEED projects can identify those contractors for you, whether they're local, international. You can reach out to them and see what they're doing and register accordingly. And indeed, not just using the database for MEED projects, but also attending our events. For example, meeting face-to-face the key clients and companies and building the relationships that way as well. Okay, what sectors are the early adopters of the construction processes like advanced work packaging? Generally, the procurement in the MENA region for construction infrastructure has to follow, for public sector clients, has to follow government procurement rules, which are quite rigid when it comes to the procurement of contracts and has very little sort of diversification or change in contractual types. And generally speaking, the public sector, doesn't incorporate a lot of sort of early contract involvement, advanced works packaging, cost plus, and so forth. It's only when you go into the private sector, and particularly in the giga projects, that we're seeing more innovative contractual structures like early contractor involvement, for example, or FEED plus EPC. So, like some Neom, Red Sea Global, which takes more of a construction management approach, the likes of ADNOC and Aramco, these companies have a little bit more flexibility outside of the government procurement rules to be able to adapt or adopt their different contractual mechanisms for procurement. So if you're looking at what companies do that, it's those outside of the public sector sphere generally. Are there any plans for geothermal projects in the GCC? Very interesting. Not that I'm aware of, no. I don't believe the topology or the geography or geology or whatever theology is for the region is suitable for geothermal plans. So no, I'm not aware of that. The nearest geothermal projects are in Kenya and Ethiopia. And again, we cover sub-Saharan Africa in the MEED projects database. So if you want to find out more about those geothermal projects, then Ethiopia, you can check out MEED projects for those projects in Ethiopia and Kenya. But if I look at North Africa, again, I don't see any geothermal projects either. And people saying thank you for the presentation. It's my pleasure, and we do these every month, once or twice a month. So keep an eye on your in your inbox, and also on our website for the next webinars. We'll be doing some soon on Abu Dhabi oil and gas. We'll be doing another Giga Projects webinar, hydrogen, and so on throughout the course of the year. How likely is that the enormous demand for projects and infrastructure demand will be meet a point where shortages will inflate pricing significantly? Well, it's already happening. It's a seller's market right now for materials, equipment, and contracting. So we are, of course, seeing some increases in material costs when you combine general inflation levels, higher interest rates, and some of the logistical challenges that we're seeing right now. We are seeing pricing increase, and so that is already happening. So clients are reacting by trying to change contractual terms, to reduce their construction risk, to long lead procure items on a long lead basis, and to try and attract foreign investment to produce locally. And of course, clients are fighting against each other, competing against each other for resources. And because it's a seller's market, L vendors can essentially take their pick of clients, and those which are going to offer the best terms are going to be the ones which are more successful. So we're already seeing this price inflection take hold. Are there studies on the Eastern Province and the Gulf Coast for potential demand and supply assessments and forecasts by asset classes? Well, I'm sure there are. I don't have any specific details, but on the assumption that we are going to see some 3 or 4 big giga projects in that area, then I would assume the PIF has done studies on that. We need a strategic plan for the huge demand on project supply chain challenge, skilled manpower supply challenge, and equipment challenge. Now, I personally have been involved in quite a few major consultancy projects over the last 18 months or so from some very big clients, very concerned about the impact of shortage of materials, labor, and construction capacity, subcontractor capacity, and so on this growing and booming projects market, particularly in Saudi Arabia, but also in the UAE. If you do have any questions specific questions about plans, strategic plans, assessments required for data and market studies, then please reach out to me directly, because we do have a consultancy service with a lot of data and expertise and insight which can help you. Can we bid via your platform? No, MEED Projects is not a bidding platform, unfortunately. We do highlight what projects there are, but to bid for them, you will need to liaise directly through either through the public tender boards or the individual clients themselves. Any mega-sized projects happening in Jordan? Jordan is a sort of a much smaller market with much smaller projects generally. There aren't really any major mega projects there. Yes, we've got the sort of Red Sea, Dead Sea sort of conveyance system out there. We have a few US military big projects. We've got some projects around Aqaba port as well, but nothing of very substantial size, unfortunately. So it is a small market, but there are some interesting opportunities there. But it sort of pales in comparison to what's happening in its neighbor. How much is your subscription charges for the MEED Projects database? Well, it depends on the package you take, whether it's by country, sector, or region. I think the best way to answer that question is get a demo of the system, and then depending on your requirements, you can get a quote for that. Who are the major foundation contractors like Bauer in the MENA region? Well, there's quite a few, a lot of regional ones like National Piling Company, Advanced Piling Company, Pinnacle Piling Company, Bauer, of course, and many more, which escape me at the moment off the top of my head. But needless to say, given the state of given the long history of very tall mega projects, tower projects as well in the region, there were some very advanced and expert piling companies around. Again, if you want to know who the exact piling companies are for each project, again, someone like MEED projects would be great for helping you identify who those are. Any more updates about clients and contractors using AI in modular construction in construction and infrastructure projects? Certainly. So modular construction right now is very, very popular. It's a very, very fast-growing construction trend. We have, particularly in, say, the Red Sea project and NEOM, a lot of modular construction being employed. Reason is that labor accommodation is in short supply. If you can have a lot of your construction outside the off-site rather than on-site, that is certainly something that is looked on very favorably. If you're looking at some of these projects, we've have some very long-term demand for things like labor accommodation, blocks, campsites, housing, and so on. Then modular construction again is a very good long-term prospect. If you look at, say, the Red Sea project, a lot of modular construction was done in other countries and then shipped in. So modular construction right now is definitely a technology of choice in Saudi Arabia, and I can see many construction companies setting up their own fabrication facilities in Riyadh and along the Red Sea coast to target that particular market. AI as well is a very popular, growing popular segment of construction technology. Primarily in terms of the actual delivery of projects, it's focused on the digitalization of various cost scheduling and PID elements of projects, digitalizing those, bringing them together to help interface them and sort of integrating them into 3D BIM aspects. And then, of course, you can use that AI to integrate as well with the costings and the sustainability elements of projects to go into 4D and 5D BIM. So AI is an integral process, a part of that process, and of course then linking with digital twin technology for sensors and predictive analysis. And then if you go a step further, AI will be an integral component using deep learning and machine learning for 6D and 7D BIM, even looking at post asset completion, facility management metrics as well. So a lot of potential applications for AI, a lot of different products and service providers out there with AI solutions, whether it's generative AI or it's machine learning AI. But for companies that want to take that step, there is sort of big investment required. But if you want to link all your different software solutions, you can make huge savings in both the design process and time, as well as sort of overall budget in terms of efficiency. So certainly AI is an aspect that construction companies, sophisticated ones in particular, should look at on some of these bigger projects. Any delays on projects in the UAE? Well, no, not right now. The real estate market is booming. People are buying projects off plan. As the projects are sold out off plan, then clients have the ability to be able to finance them and push ahead with them. So certainly from the real estate perspective in the UAE, not many delays at the moment. Okay, questions about cash flow for contractors and subcontractors. Is there any way MEED can help identifying projects? Well, you know, it's a dangerous business going around saying X client has got a bad reputation for payments, at least publicly anyway. But again, through our research consultancy aspect, we may be able to advise on that on a confidential basis and help identify what the risks are for cash flow payments and delayed payments. As you all know, as I said, it's the seller's market. So companies can take their pick, and the ones which have the best reputation are the ones who are going to be the ones who attract contractors and subcontractors. How can we view the projects awarded to the contractor? Again, well, the solution simply here is the MEED projects database, as well as MEED.com. You have a list of all contracts in the region above $10 million, and you have a list of all the contractors bidding, pre-qualified for, all winning and bidding and executing projects there. So MEEDprojects.com, you can see the thousands of contractors working in the region, along with contacts for them. We provide marble countertops, tables, protection vanities for projects. How do we access the projects in Saudi Arabia? Well, I would advise either finding a local partner, distributor, agent, so on, or in cases where projects are clients are using construction management approach like Red Sea Global, you should pre-qualify, register with them directly. They will be willing to have your products imported directly. So what I would do is go to those Giga project clients, register with them as vendors, and then you will start receiving RFPs, RFQs for materials directly. Otherwise, you should register or register with them as vendors anyway, because then when contractors win the job, they will have a list of approved vendors with your name on them accordingly. Yes, is this presentation being recorded? Yes, it is, and it will be uploaded to the internet in a couple of days. If you've registered for this event, you'll get a webinar with the link to the video once that's done. And you should also, if you've registered, have received a copy of this presentation in PDF format. Is it necessary to establish a company in Saudi Arabia? No, not necessarily. You can joint venture, you can find an agent or distributor, or you can even, depending on what service you provide, if it's materials, for example, you can, there's no need to have a Saudi Arabia requirement. Remember what I said about it being a seller's market and clients outside government procurement systems being quite desperate for materials and service providers? Well, that also means that companies can provide materials and services for them outside of the kingdom, as they are keen to get companies involved in their projects. Will there be any Giga projects in Qatar in the next 2 years? Difficult to say, really, because it's a very flat market right now. What I can see happening is potentially the extension of the existing Qatar metro network, and there are plans as well for the GCC railway element within Qatar itself, linking a freight and high-speed railway line to the Saudi border. There's also talks about reviving the causeway between Qatar and Bahrain. But generally speaking, the short-term horizon for projects in Qatar is quite pessimistic. What about the new mini NEOM being built in Riyadh? I assume you're either talking about the new Maraba project, which has the Makab Cube project in the center of it, or you're talking about the North Pole project, which has the world's highest tower, 2 kilometers high, which Foster and Partners are designing in an area called Project X. And then there's also some central Riyadh development projects coming up as well. But all of them are in progress, albeit at very early stages. Right, I think I'm running out of time here, so I won't be able to answer all your questions. Only a couple of more which I haven't been able to answer. So I apologize if I haven't been able to answer all of them. But thank you very much for your questions and your attention today and joining me and MEED at this for this webinar presentation. As I said, we do these once or twice a month. We've got some very interesting ones coming up. Check out our webinar calendar. And as I said, check out our websites, meedprojects.com and meed.com for news, features, analysis, and our projects database. And don't forget our Giga Project Summit on the 13th of May in Riyadh, and our MENA Construction 2024 Summit the following day, also in Riyadh. I will hopefully will see you there. Details on this presentation. And for now, that just leaves me to say thank you again very much for joining us, and hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you very much.